Mystery Writers of America presents The Prosecution Rests, new stories about courtrooms, criminals, and the law. Edited by Linda Fairstein. Narrated by Cassandra Campbell and Paul Boehmer. Copyright 2009 by Mystery Writers of America, Incorporated. Introduction copyright 2009 by Linda Fairstein. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Mystery Writers of America, Incorporated and the Howard Morhaime Literary Agency, and was produced in the year 2009 by Tantor Media, Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. The Prosecution Rests, an Introduction, by Linda Fairstein. As a prosecutor in the great office of the New York County District Attorney for 30 years, I tried dozens of felony cases: murder, rape, robbery, burglary, and assaults of every variety. I worked shoulder to shoulder with the smartest cops in the city before ever taking the results of their investigations into the well of the courtroom and presenting the gathered evidence to a jury of the defendant's peers. My adversaries were among the most talented members of the defense bar, skilled in the art of advocacy and the ability to communicate with those good citizens chosen to judge the fate of their clients. There were powerful moments of eliciting facts from witnesses that established the necessary elements of brutal crimes, a few terrifying occasions when the mendacity of my own complainants was exposed by the opposing counsel, the astounding triumphs afforded to my colleagues and me when a revolutionary scientific technique called DNA was first introduced to the criminal courtroom in 1986, and every now and then a dazzling turn at cross-examination which nailed the hired gun, the expert witness of an opponent. My favorite moment in the trial was always the point at which I rested, at which I announced to the judge and jury that I had completed the people's case. It was the culmination of months of preparation and organization, mastering the facts and scrutinizing the details, interpreting the alleles and loci of genetic fingerprinting, and packaging everything I could gather to present to the jury in a logical, persuasive, and trustworthy fashion. Defense counsel had taken his best shot at my witnesses and might or might not go on to offer his own version of events, but my burden on behalf of the state had been satisfied. The old maxim claims that a trial is a search for the truth, but as all the participants know, that search should have been completed long before any of us walked through the courtroom doors to try to convince the jurors of our position. From the discovery of the commission of the crime, police officers are charged with the responsibility of evaluating the evidence they collect, eyewitness descriptions and circumstantial facts, and now the remarkable forensic tools that have so radically affected the criminal justice system. Then district attorneys are called in on the cases. We take our witnesses as we find them, some of them innocent victims, but many of them flawed human beings, people who lie, cheat, steal, and have violated most of the other commandments before they ever raise their hands and swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Defendants are arrested and indicted, hiring private counsel or assigned public defenders to represent them at trial. The search for truth goes on throughout the entirety of the pretrial period. Lawyers for both sides seek testimonial, documentary, and scientific evidence to corroborate their witnesses or exonerate those wrongly charged. Most of the time, I like to think, our system of justice has served us well. The Mystery Writers of America invited authors, best-selling storytellers as well as new voices, to explore the complicated characters that inhabit the courtroom. In this wonderfully mixed collection of well-told tales, you'll meet rogue lawyers and victims who lie, people who want the system to work, and those who use it for revenge or a more personal form of justice. The alibi witness who is eviscerated on the stand, and the killer who gets away with murder. These are stories about the criminal justice system, and, may it please the court, I, for one, am grateful they are fiction. I am delighted to offer the exhibits in this anthology to you as part of my case-in-chief, Again, it's like my favorite moment at trial. I've given you the best of my fellow MWA writers, and now I get to sit back at counsel table while you evaluate the evidence. The prosecution rests. But I hope your enjoyment of these stories is just beginning.
The Secret Session by Edward D. Hawke. Judge Boehmer himself entered Harry Fine's chambers a few weeks following Harry's swearing in as the newest justice on the state's Court of Appeals. It was a snowy January morning with the windows tightly closed, and Harry's first thought was that the chief would probably light up one of his cigars in violation of the building's no-smoking rule. "Harry, do you have a few minutes?" he asked, closing the door behind him without waiting for a reply. Judge Boehmer was the ultimate father figure, a stern but fair man who'd headed the Court of Appeals since Harry was admitted to the bar a dozen years earlier. He was over 6 feet tall, with snow-white hair, and a commanding voice that had many attorneys quaking in their boots and rushing back to the law library after a session with him. "Certainly, Chief," Harry said at once, rising from his chair. "What can I do for you?" Sit down." He took the maroon leather armchair opposite Harry's desk. "What I'm about to tell you is in confidence. I'd hoped I wouldn't have to tell you at all, but something's come up which may require our action." "You certainly have my curiosity aroused," Harry said with a smile. "Did you ever wonder what prompted Colin Penny's resignation, opening up the seat for you?" "He said he wanted to spend more time with his family and maybe return to private law practice." Judge Boehmer snorted. "I doubt if you'll see him in a courtroom again, at least not in this state. Any sitting justices, especially on the Court of Appeals, are open to bribery attempts. It goes with the territory in this state." Certain accusations were made against Judge Penny. Accusations that could damage a person's career even if they went unproven. Rather than allow these to be made public, we convened a secret session of the court. "A what?" "Perhaps that is the wrong term to use. In any event, all 5 justices, including Judge Penny, gathered in private to examine the charges and rumors circulating about his conduct. Much of the evidence concerned a large political donation, beyond the legal limits, made by a lumber company that won the bidding to cull a portion of the state forest land. Another bidder had sued, claiming the winner had prior knowledge of the bidding. His claim was rejected by a lower court, but it was working its way up to us. That was when Penny accepted a large political donation from the lumber company." "Why are you telling me this?" Harry Fine asked. There was something unsettling about the conversation, and he wanted it to end. "Because it has become necessary, Harry. In our secret session, we heard the case against Colin Penny and listened to his meager defense. Then he left the room while the 4 of us discussed his fate. I must tell you, the vote to force his resignation was not unanimous. Susan Quinn was on his side and spoke vigorously in his defense, but the vote was 3-1, or 3-2 if we count Judge Penny's own vote. He was told he would have to resign. He went along with that? He had no choice. The reporter who had the story agreed to kill it if Penny offered his resignation. Otherwise, it would have been all over the papers." Fine shook his head. "Highly irregular," he muttered. "This is my court, Harry. I will do everything in my power to douse any flicker of scandal before it ignites." "You still haven't told me why I need to know this." Judge Boehmer paused and reached for a cigar in his breast pocket, then thought better of it. "The reporter who threatened to break the story about Penny's illegal contributions now says there is a second member of the court involved. I see us going through this whole nightmare again. That's why I've come to you." "Who's the reporter?" "Maeve Maguire. You've probably seen her bylines." Harry Fine nodded. "She's a pretty good writer. ran a short interview on me after my appointment last month." I read it. "That's why you're the perfect one to contact her." "Contact her about what? I can't ask her to kill a story." "Of course not. But you can have a friendly conversation with her, find out what's going on. All I have is a tip, and I can't pursue it, personally, for various reasons." "Couldn't one of the other justices?" "Hardly. If the information she has is accurate, any one of them might be involved." "Surely not Susan Quinn?" The feisty brunette judge, only a few years older than Fine, had introduced him to his new position by tutoring him in the arcane rituals of the Court of Appeals. Judge Boehmer shrugged. "It might be Quinn, or Frank Rockwell, or Zach Wanamaker. Find out what you can." "I doubt if she'll reveal any big secrets. Not to me, at least." Fine phoned Maeve McGuire and invited her to lunch the following day. Not wanting it to appear clandestine in any way, he suggested they meet at the Temple Bar, a restaurant across from the appellate court that was frequented by lawyers and judges. As the hostess showed them to the table near the window, he saw Judge Rockwell at a nearby table, raising his eyebrows. Maeve saw it too and commented, "Does he think he's spotted a blooming romance?" "I hope not. My divorce isn't final yet." She was an intense, attractive young woman who rarely smiled, even when joking. Harry Fine read her columns intermittently and had seen her around the courts on occasion. He had consented to last month's interview after winning the appointment to fill Colin Penny's term. "I hope you phoned to give me the inside scoop on the appellate court." She chided him now. "The word is that Boehmer rules with an iron fist." "You probably know more about it than I do," he told her. "What's the latest scandal?" She shrugged. "One a year is quite enough. I assume you know about your predecessor." "Judge Penny? I've heard talk. I've even heard he might not have been the only one accepting illegal campaign contributions." "Tell me more," she urged, flashing one of her rare smiles. "I was hoping you could tell me." The smile faded as quickly as it had appeared. "Did Judge Boehmer send you?" "Let's enjoy our lunch and not worry about who sent me." She shook her head. "Look, Judge Fine, I interviewed you for my paper, but that doesn't make us lifelong friends. I have nothing to tell you. As you probably know, I agreed to kill a story about Judge Penny because he resigned from the court. That was a one-shot, and it won't happen again. Anything more that I discover about illegal contributions or bribes will end up on our front page. Of course, I'm not trying to influence you in any way." But the luncheon went downhill after that. She dashed off as quickly as possible, pleading another appointment, and he finished his coffee alone. He was just paying the check when Frank Rockwell stopped by his table on the way out. "Courting the press these days, are you?" he asked. "Not really. She interviewed me last month, and I felt I owed her a lunch in return." "Never get too friendly with the press," the gray-haired justice advised. "They'll screw you every time." Fine smiled. "Thanks for the advice, Judge." Whatever Boehmer had hoped would come of the lunch with Maeve McGuire, it hadn't happened. Fine hated to admit failure to the chief and decided to try another possibility on his own. With no pending sessions that afternoon, he drove out to Willow Road where his predecessor Colin Penny resided. It was an upper-middle-class neighborhood of older colonial homes, and Penny's house was only a few doors away from Judge Wanamaker's, where Fine had attended a New Year's Day open house a few weeks earlier. Zach Wanamaker was at the courthouse, of course, and there was no sign of his wife as Fine drove past the house. He was in luck with Penny, though. The former judge was sweeping a light coating of snow from his driveway in an obvious make-work effort to keep busy at something. Fine pulled up and parked. "I was driving by and saw you out here," he said, getting out of the car. "Hello, Judge." "I think you can call me Harry," Fine told him, already regretting that he'd stopped. "How are you doing?" "Okay. I think I'll be going back into private practice soon. Taking good care of my old office?" "Sure," he answered with a smile. Penny was a decade older than him, a hard age to be starting over. Already his face was lined, and he seemed to have aged since Fine had last seen him. The word was that his wife had moved out after his forced resignation and was staying with their son's family in Arizona. "Stop in and see us sometime." Penny tried to smile, but couldn't quite make it. "I don't think that would be wise. I'm the black sheep these days." "I'm not sure you weren't the only one who took a contribution now and then." "No," he agreed. "But I was the only one Maeve Maguire found out about." "Well—" Fine glanced up at the sky, searching for a way out of the conversation. "Think we'll get any more snow?" "Any minute, now that I've finished sweeping." He turned away and headed back to the house. "Good seeing you, Judge." Fine returned to his car and drove back to the office. He reported to Judge Boehmer later that afternoon. Judge Susan Quinn was present too and was especially interested in Fine's brief conversation with Penny. How did he seem? She wanted to know. "Maybe a little bitter," Fine said. "But it's hard for me to tell. I never knew him that well." Judge Boehmer wasn't interested in Penny's feelings. "Did he say anything about someone else on the court being involved?" Susan, at age 46, still wore her hair at shoulder length, despite some traces of gray. She was married to a successful surgeon, and the two were popular partygoers in local society. She interrupted to defend Penny. "Isn't it bad enough you forced his resignation?" she asked. He turned to her and said, "My dear, this appellate court is the most important thing in my life. I intend to keep it pure and uncorrupted no matter who suffers. Now then, Harry, what, if anything, did Colin Penny say to you?" "Nothing, really. I remarked that there were probably others who'd accepted donations, and he replied that he was the only one the reporter found out about." "Was he speaking specifically of the appellate court?" "I don't know. It was just a general comment." Susan shook her head. "Chief, you're carrying this to extremes. Harry has told you everything he knows." "Very well," Judge Boehmer agreed. "We'll adjourn this session for now." The rest of the week passed quietly. January was often a slow month on the court calendar, and the chief called only one joint session on Friday concerning a statute of limitations case. Zach Wanamaker cast the deciding vote to uphold the lower court's ruling, and everyone scattered for the weekend. Fine went down to the parking garage with Wanamaker when it was over. "Going skiing this weekend?" he asked. Knowing that the older man spent time on the slopes whenever he could, he was in good physical shape with a ruddy outdoor complexion. "You bet," Judge Wanamaker replied. "I'm driving up to the mountains tonight, meeting some friends there." Fine didn't particularly care whether his friends were male or female. They were just making elevator conversation. "We'll see you on Monday, then." Wanamaker nodded. "I'll be driving back early Monday morning. Have a good weekend." Fine spent Saturday and Sunday reading up on earlier appellate court decisions. He had a good working knowledge of the law, but Judge Boehmer could leave him in the dust with citations of obscure cases. Fine's law clerk had assembled enough reading matter to keep him occupied for the weekend, and he almost felt guilty slipping away on Sunday night for dinner with a lady friend. He was preparing to leave for the courthouse that sunny Monday morning when Judge Boehmer phoned. "I just wanted to alert you, Harry. That reporter, Maeve Maguire, was killed by a hit-and-run driver about an hour ago, on her way to work." By 11 o'clock, the 5 justices were assembled in the chief's spacious office. Judge Boehmer rapped his knuckles on the desk to signal for quiet, though no one had said a word since entering the office. He took out one of his cigars, but it remained unlit, perhaps in deference to Susan Quinn, the most outspoken justice on the subject of smoking. "You all know why we're here," Boehmer said. "Miss Maguire made charges against Colin Penny that forced his resignation. And recently I've heard rumors that she was about to make accusations against another of our number. Her death this morning is tragic, of course, but it has nothing to do with us. I would suggest that if any of us are contacted by the press, we merely have no comment other than to express our sympathy to her family." "The press will be all over this," Frank Rockwell said. "She's one of theirs." He brushed back his gray hair with a familiar gesture and added, "Harry had lunch with her last week." Wanamaker turned toward him, a bit surprised by this news, but the chief hurried to his defense. "I asked Harry to contact her because she'd recently interviewed him. I thought he might learn if the rumors were true that another justice was involved." Fine nodded in agreement. "Unfortunately, I learned nothing from her." Susan Quinn spoke next. "Where did you hear these rumors, Chief?" "I'd rather not say." "Come on," Judge Wanamaker insisted. "We have a right to know." Boehmer squirmed uneasily. "All I can tell you is that it was someone at the newspaper who knew what she was working on. It was the same person who tipped me off about the situation with Judge Penny." "What time was she killed?" Susan wanted to know. "The police tell me it was about 7:40 a.m. She started work at 8. They have alternate side of the street parking, and she was crossing the street to her car. A neighbor heard the thump when the car hit her, but no one has come forward yet who actually saw it happen." "Are the police checking garages and repair shops?" Harry Fine asked. "Of course. That's the first thing they think of." There was little more to be said. None of them wanted to suggest, even obliquely, that Maeve Maguire had been killed to keep her from revealing anything further about bribery or illegal campaign contributions. Even Judge Boehmer finished the session by remarking that it was a terrible accident. And yet, the driver hadn't stopped. Fine went back to his office and tried to work, but the memory of Maeve Maguire was too strong to shake off. He ate lunch alone at a little coffee shop down the street and returned to find a pale Susan Quinn waiting in his office. "What is it?" he asked, immediately on guard. "I received a message meant for Judge Wanamaker," she said in a hushed voice. "I'm not sure what I should do." "What was it?" "It was on my voicemail, but it was for Zach. His garage called with an estimate on repairing his car. He's to phone them." "You haven't told him?" "He's not back from lunch." Fine stared out the window for a moment. She was asking him what she should do, and he didn't know what to tell her. "Can't you just give him the message when he returns?" "Harry, what if the car was damaged when he hit—" "Don't even say it," he cautioned. He wasn't willing to accept the notion that Zach Wanamaker, or any of the other justices, could be a murderer. "Should I tell the chief?" she asked. "Not yet. Look, it may be nothing. It may be a ding in his door or a damaged tire." "You don't usually get estimates on jobs like that." She was probably right, but they needed more information before taking it to the chief. "Look, could you phone the repair shop and say you're Judge Wanamaker's secretary calling for the estimate? Find out what repair it's for." I don't know if I should do that." "I'd do it myself and say that I'm Zach, but they might know his voice." "You really think we should?" "We have to know, Susan, before anyone else does. If the police are starting to check repair shops—" "All right," she decided. "I'll call. She put on her reading glasses to make out the number on her note and punched it into Harry's phone. "Make it sound good," he told her, shutting the office door. "Hello?" she said. "This is Judge Wanamaker's secretary. You phoned him about repairing the damage to his car. He's wondering how much that would be." She listened and jotted down a figure. $985, she repeated, raising her eyebrows toward Fine. "And what would that cover?" "The right front fender and the right headlight. And you've already notified the insurance company?" "Very good. When will it be ready?" "Not till Friday?" "All right, I'll tell him." "Thank you." She hung up. "You should have been an actress instead of a judge," Fine told her. "Sure, or maybe just a secretary." He hit something with his car. Or someone. "I can't believe it, Harry. We'll have to tell the chief." "All right," he agreed. "We'll go in together." Judge Boehmer looked up as they entered his office and closed the door. "What's up?" he asked, looking from one to the other. Susan told him what they'd done, about the mistaken message and her call to the repair shop. "It's probably nothing," she told him, "but in view of what happened this morning—" Boehmer shook his head. "I've known Zach for 20 years. He couldn't do anything like this." "You'd better ask him," Fine suggested. "I think he's back from lunch now." A few moments later, Zach Wanamaker joined them in the chief's office, puzzled by their grim expressions. "What's up?" he asked. Judge Boehmer asked, "Did you have an accident with your car, Zach?" "Accident?" "A call from your repair shop was on my voicemail by mistake," Susan told him. "Nearly $1,000 damage." "Oh, that." He shrugged it off. "Driving back from the mountains this morning, I hit a deer, killed it dead." "Did you report it to the police?" Boehmer asked. "Of course. You think I'd break the law?" "I got home a little after 7, showered, and took the car into the shop. Luckily, I could still drive it." "We'll have to confirm your story." "Confirm all you want," Wanamaker said, his ruddy complexion turning a deeper red than usual. "I damn well didn't kill your girlfriend, if that's what you're thinking." Everyone seemed to freeze at his words, and Fine had the bizarre impression of time standing still. He feared what might happen next, but there was an opportune knock at the door, and Judge Rockwell entered. "Am I interrupting something?" he asked. The chief recovered his composure, as if Wanamaker's words had never been spoken. "Not at all, Frank. Come in. We're just discussing the McGuire situation." "Terrible, a terrible accident." Judge Boehmer spoke as if announcing a verdict, without looking at Zach Wanamaker. "It was no accident. I'm calling a secret session of this court for Wednesday morning at 11 to consider the murder of Maeve McGuire and any possible involvement by a member of this court." Boehmer remained in his office with the door closed, admitting not even his law clerks, until late in the day. Then he summoned Fine. Lighting one of his cigars, he said, "Harry, I want you to check out Judge Wanamaker's alibi about hitting the deer. See if there's any truth to it." "I don't know that you should refer to it as an alibi, Chief. He hasn't been accused of anything yet." "Just see if the state police have a report of his car hitting a deer this morning." "All right." He hesitated, knowing he was on slippery ground. "What he said about you and Miss McGuire?" "Is no one's business. We were friends for a time, and she tipped me off about Penny." "What about the latest rumor?" "She didn't give me a name. By that time we'd broken up. That's why I sent you to see what you could learn." Fine tended to believe the last part.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?